I never imagined a cracked phone screen could flip my whole world upside down. One ordinary morning, it slipped right through my fingers and hit the kitchen tiles, the sound of shattering glass ringing louder than it should have. I remember sighing, brushing the tiny shards away, trying to laugh it off like it was nothing. That phone had been with me through birthdays, late-night texts, even silly selfies with Robert. And now it was just dead weight. So without thinking too hard, I replaced it with the same model Robert had. Practical, right? Matching phones in one household. It even felt a little sweet. Weeks rolled by, and our mornings stayed the same. Coffee brewing, the radio buzzing softly in the background, Robert rushing out like he always did. He kissed my cheek in a hurry, keys jingling as he mumbled something about being late. I didn't pay much attention. I had my own mental list already unfolding in my head. Why would I notice him grabbing a phone off the counter? In our house, everything felt predictable, like a script we had been reciting for years. But life has a way of throwing you off script when you least expect it. It wasn't until later that morning that something felt wrong. I picked up the phone to check my messages and the screen lit up, but the wallpaper wasn't mine. It was Robert's. A picture of that beach he loved, the one we'd gone to before life got heavy with routines and responsibilities. I blinked, thinking maybe I was just tired. Then it hit me. Robert had walked out the door with my phone. I stared at his in my hand and muttered, half amused, "Wait a second. This isn't mine. He must have switched them by mistake." At first, I couldn't help but chuckle. Robert must have been panicking without his phone, I thought. He used it for everything: clients, meetings, even his silly reminders to buy milk. I pictured him at the office, patting his pockets, realizing too late that he'd grabbed the wrong one. With a grin, I decided I'd play the hero and call him from his own phone. It felt funny, almost mischievous, like I was in on a harmless prank. I scrolled through his contacts, searching for my number, but something caught my eye. Right there, near the top, was a name I didn't expect. My love. My heart softened for a second. How sweet, I thought, he'd saved me under that name. A little blush crept across my face as I hovered over it. Without thinking too much, I tapped it, ready to tease him for being so sentimental. The phone rang, and I lifted it to my ear, smiling like a teenager. But the voice on the other end wasn't Robert's. It was light, playful, a woman's laugh. "Wow, Robert," she purred, "calling me so early? Do you want to meet today?" My smile vanished in an instant. The air sucked right out of the room. My throat tightened as I whispered, "Who is this?" The woman paused, her tone sharpening. "Who's asking? Where's Robert?" My hand trembled, and before she could say another word, I hung up. My chest was pounding, my palms clammy. Suddenly, that little phone mix-up didn't feel so harmless anymore. I sat there staring at Robert's phone like it had turned into a live grenade. My hands were shaking, my breath shallow, and 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. Maybe I misheard. Maybe it was a joke. But deep down, I knew better. That laugh, that easy familiarity. It wasn't the kind of voice you mistake for something innocent. It was intimate. It was practiced. The room suddenly felt smaller, heavier, like the walls were leaning in on me. My mind spun back to little moments, his late nights at the office, the sudden, urgent meetings, the way he'd sometimes pull his phone closer when I walked by. All those tiny red flags I brushed aside now came rushing back, slapping me in the face. I pressed my lips together, forcing myself not to cry. Not yet. Not for him. Instead, I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself. I needed to think, not break. My fingers hovered over the phone again, but I didn't dare scroll further, not right then. One wrong move, and Robert would know I'd seen too much. No, I had to play this smart. So I set the phone back on the counter, my heart still racing, already knowing this was only the beginning of something much bigger than a cracked screen. I couldn't stop thinking about that voice. It echoed in my head like a broken record, replaying every syllable with that casual, flirtatious tone. Who was she? How long had she been calling my husband Robert with that kind of softness? My chest ached, but beneath the ache was a spark of something else. Anger, sharp and hot. Still, I needed proof. A single phone call wasn't enough. I had to see it with my own eyes. So I picked up his phone again, my hand steadier this time. I scrolled slowly, pretending I wasn't afraid of what I'd find. That name, my love, stared back at me, daring me to press it again. For a second, I smiled to myself, thinking maybe this was some twisted mistake, that it really was me he meant. I wanted that to be true, desperately. But curiosity has a cruel way of shoving you toward the truth, doesn't it? I tapped the number once more, this time without the playful grin. My heart hammered as the line connected, every second stretching out like an eternity. "Morning, darling," I said softly, trying to sound lighthearted, though my voice quivered. And then, just like before, came her voice, warm, expectant. "Wow, Robert, calling me so early? Do you want to meet today?" My stomach dropped, the ground ripped out from under me. My throat tightened as if someone had gripped it from the inside. I whispered, barely audible, "Who is this?" The silence that followed felt like knives. Then her tone changed, sharp and suspicious. "Who's asking? Where's Robert?" My grip on the phone faltered, sweat dampening my palm. I froze, caught between rage and terror, and before my courage could betray me further, I ended the call with a trembling thumb. I stared at the screen, my reflection faint in the dark glass. My face looked unfamiliar, eyes wide, lips pressed tight, as if I were staring at a stranger. In that moment, something inside me cracked, louder than any shattered phone screen. This wasn't a misunderstanding, wasn't a wrong number. It was a door swinging open to a truth I had been too blind, or too trusting to see. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I pressed them against the counter, grounding myself, though the world tilted anyway. Part of me wanted to hurl the phone across the room, smash it into pieces, and pretend none of this existed. But the other part, the stronger part, knew I couldn't. Not when I had just stumbled onto proof that my life wasn't what I thought it was. And I wasn't ready to let Robert know that I knew. Not yet. I slid the phone across the counter like it burned to touch it. My pulse was still racing, my ears ringing as if the whole house were buzzing with the secret I had just uncovered. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to drive straight to Robert's office and throw the truth in his face. But something inside me whispered, "Wait. Don't give him the satisfaction of knowing how deeply he's cut you." I wrapped my arms around myself, pacing the kitchen floor, each step echoing louder than the last. How many times had he looked me in the eye while texting her? How many nights had I fallen asleep alone while he was busy being Robert to another woman? I felt both hollow and blazing all at once, like I'd been emptied out and set on fire in the same breath. And yet, even in the middle of that storm, a strange calm crept in. Maybe it was survival. Maybe it was instinct. I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't ignore this. I couldn't unhear her voice, or pretend that my love was meant for me. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about what I was going to do next, and how carefully I had to play the game from here. That evening, I waited. I sat in the living room with the lamp casting a soft yellow glow, the clock ticking louder than usual, counting down the seconds until Robert came home. My hands were folded neatly in my lap, though inside I was anything but neat. My heart thumped with a mix of rage and heartbreak, twisting me into knots. Every sound outside, the crunch of gravel, a car door slamming, set my nerves on edge. When he finally walked through the door, humming like he didn't have a care in the world, I studied him like a stranger. The casual way he dropped his jacket, the familiar curve of his smile, the warmth in his voice when he said, "Hey, Clara, everything all right? You look pale." It almost made me laugh, the irony of him worrying about me when he was the one who should have been trembling. I forced a smile, tucking the storm inside me like a secret I wasn't ready to unleash. "I'm fine. Just a long day," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "How was work?" He shrugged, loosening his tie, the picture of a man carrying the weight of clients and deadlines. "Busy. You know how it is. Clients don't let me breathe." I nodded, biting back the words that threatened to spill out. Oh, I know exactly how it is. I watched him move around the house, each gesture suddenly loaded with double meaning. The way he loosened his collar, poured himself a drink, leaned back on the couch. It all looked so ordinary, yet I couldn't unsee the lies hidden in the spaces between. He had no idea I had touched the edges of his secret, no clue that one slip of a phone had cracked open his carefully built facade. Inside, my thoughts clashed like cymbals. Should I throw the truth at him right there, let it shatter across the room? Or should I hold it close, bide my time, and make him squirm in his own silence? Confrontation would bring answers, but it would also bring excuses, and I wasn't ready for his half-truths wrapped in charm. No, I needed clarity. I needed control. So I laughed when he made a joke, even leaned in when he brushed past me, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. I studied his every move, memorizing the way he lied without flinching. That night, as I lay beside him in the dark, his breathing steady and calm, I stared at the ceiling. My heart was heavy, but my mind was already working. If he thought I was blind, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. Lying there, I felt like I was sharing a bed with a stranger. His hand brushed against mine in his sleep, and instead of comfort, it sent a chill through me. How many nights had he fallen asleep like this, knowing there was another woman calling him my love? The betrayal felt like a knife under my skin, but I swallowed the pain. If I broke now, I'd lose the chance to get the truth on my own terms. Memories flashed through my mind, moments I once clung to with tenderness. Our trip to the coast, the promises whispered on anniversaries, the quiet mornings with coffee and laughter. They all felt counterfeit now, like a story someone else had written for me. It was a cruel kind of grief, mourning a life that still looked intact on the outside, but grief has a way of sharpening into resolve. I closed my eyes, making a silent vow. I wouldn't let this be the end of my story, not as the foolish wife left in the dark. He might think he was clever, that his secret was safe in late-night texts and hurried phone calls, but I had something stronger than suspicion now. I had proof, and I had patience, and both were going to lead me exactly where I needed to go. The days that followed felt like living a double life. By morning, I was the same Clara, smiling, making coffee, listening to Robert talk about deadlines. By night, I became someone else entirely, a detective in my own home, quietly peeling back the layers of his lies. Every time I accidentally picked up his phone, my stomach knotted, but I forced my hands to stay steady. Curiosity wasn't driving me anymore. Evidence was. I started small. Screenshots of texts, little exchanges dripping with affection that wasn't meant for me. I sent them to my own phone, each one like a brick in the wall I was building against him. Good night, darling. I miss you. Next time, somewhere special. They read like daggers, sweet to her, venom to me. And yet, I copied them all without flinching. One by one, they became my arsenal. Robert never suspected a thing. He'd glance at me across the table, ask how my day was, even kiss my cheek before bed. Meanwhile, I carried his truth in my pocket, close enough to burn. The more I read, the less I cried. The shock was fading, and something stronger was taking root in its place. I wasn't just uncovering betrayal, I was setting the stage. He thought he was playing me, but the real game was only beginning. One evening, while Robert showered, I sat cross-legged on the bed with his phone glowing in my hands. My thumb hovered over her thread, that name, my love, mocking me from the screen. I could almost hear her laugh again, the one that had haunted me since that first call. My pulse quickened, but instead of recoiling, I leaned in. If she thought she was texting Robert, then she was about to meet a different version of him. Me. I typed slowly at first, pretending to be casual. Want to meet somewhere new this time? My heart pounded as I hit send, the whoosh of the message sounding louder than the shower running in the next room. It only took a moment for her reply to pop up. Sure, darling. How about the little Italian place downtown? My lips curled into a bitter smile. The same restaurant Robert and I had once celebrated our anniversary. How poetic. I stared at the screen, letting the weight of it sink in. They thought they were planning a secret date. What they didn't know was that I'd already decided to join them. Not as the betrayed wife begging for scraps of truth, but as the woman ready to end their charade on my own terms. I closed the phone gently, like sealing a letter, and whispered to myself, "Perfect. Exactly what I needed." The next morning, I called the Italian place myself. My voice was steady, polite, almost cheerful as I asked for a reservation, not for 2, but for 3. The hostess didn't question it, and why would she? To her, it was just another booking on a busy night, but to me, it was the stage where everything would come undone. When I hung up, I felt lighter, like I had shifted from prey to predator without him even noticing. For the next few days, I played my role to perfection. I smiled at Robert's jokes, folded his shirts, even listened to him complain about work with feigned sympathy. Every nod, every laugh, every touch was calculated. He thought he was safe inside his lie, but the truth sat hidden in plain sight, waiting for the curtain to rise. I wasn't just pretending anymore. I was performing, and the audience didn't know the ending. On the night of the date, I slipped into a dress that wasn't too flashy, but sharp enough to remind him exactly who I was. I told him I had a late spa appointment and kissed him goodbye at the door. The look of relief on his face nearly made me laugh. He believed every word, blind as ever. As he left, I watched him from the window, my reflection staring back at me. This wasn't just about catching him red-handed anymore. It was about reclaiming my power, one step at a time. I waited outside the Italian restaurant, the night air thick with the smell of garlic and fresh bread wafting from inside. My pulse drummed steady, not with fear anymore, but with anticipation. Through the window, I spotted them, Robert leaning forward, grinning, hanging on her every word like a schoolboy with a crush. She twirled her hair, eyes shining as if she'd won a prize. Watching them felt surreal, like I was observing strangers play out a cheap romance scene. Straightening my shoulders, I pushed open the door, the soft chime announcing my arrival. My heels clicked against the polished floor as I walked past tables of diners, their chatter fading into a hush. Robert's head snapped up, his smile collapsing in an instant. "Clara?" he choked, color draining from his face. The woman blinked, confused, looking between us like she had stepped into the wrong play. I didn't rush. I approached their table with calm precision, sliding Robert's phone onto the white tablecloth like a card in a high-stakes game. "I'm the wife," I said evenly, my voice cutting sharper than any scream could. Her fork froze midway to her lips. Robert stammered, words fumbling out of his mouth. "Clara, please, let me explain." But there was nothing left to explain. The truth was already seated between them. The mistress leaned back, her eyes narrowing, confusion giving way to indignation. "Who is she?" she asked, her voice sharp now, demanding. I met her gaze without flinching. "I'm the one he promised forever to. The one he's been lying to while calling us both my love." How original, right? A ripple of whispers spread across the restaurant, forks pausing mid-air, all eyes suddenly fixed on our little table. Robert reached for my hand, desperation pouring from his face. "Clara, please. You don't understand. She means nothing. This isn't what it looks like." His voice cracked, but I yanked my hand away, as if his touch could burn me. "Don't insult me with cliches," I said coldly. "You've rehearsed this, haven't you? The excuses, the damage control. But what you didn't rehearse was me finding out on my own." His mistress looked at him then, her expression souring as the realization sank in. She wasn't special. She wasn't the only one. She was just another chapter in his book of lies. The silence between them was louder than any accusation I could make. And for the first time since that phone slipped into my hands, I felt something close to satisfaction bloom inside me. This wasn't just discovery, it was exposure. I stood taller, letting the silence stretch until Robert squirmed in his chair. Then, with a calmness that startled even me, I said, "This dinner is on you. Consider it my goodbye gift." I slid his phone closer to him, the same phone that had betrayed every secret he thought he'd hidden. The color drained further from his face as the murmurs around us grew louder, strangers judging him in real time. He tried again, words tumbling over themselves. Clara, don't do this here. We can talk at home in private, please. His voice cracked under the weight of desperation, but I only shook my head. No, Robert. You created this scene. I'm just letting everyone see the truth. His mistress shifted uncomfortably, her cheeks burning as if she suddenly realized she was dining at the table of a married man exposed in public. With one last look, steady, unbroken, I picked up my purse and turned toward the door. The air inside was heavy with tension, but outside, the night felt wide open, fresh, almost cleansing. My heels clicked against the pavement, each step taking me farther from him, from them, from the lies. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't trembling. I was free, and I wasn't about to look back. Weeks later, my life looked nothing like it had before, and that was a blessing. I'd moved out, packed away the remnants of a marriage that wasn't what I thought it was, and started piecing together a life that belonged solely to me. Robert tried to call, of course, dozens of times, but every attempt ended the same way, blocked. His voice would never reach me again. One afternoon, I sat in a cozy cafe with friends, laughter spilling between us over steaming cups of coffee. The sunlight filtered through the window, warm on my skin, and for once my smile wasn't forced. My phone buzzed on the table, the same model that had exposed the truth, and instead of dread, I felt only gratitude. That little device had been the crack in the facade, the doorway to my freedom. A friend leaned in, curious. "Do you ever regret finding out that way?" she asked gently. I lifted my cup, savoring the sip before answering with a smile. Not at all. One wrong phone gave me the right freedom. Later that night, I renamed my number in my own contacts list. No longer my love. Now it read, my life. Because finally, the only love I needed was the one I gave myself.